right. So, just a little bit of an overview with Odoo and accounting. When you're using the manufacturing and the accounting together, you're going to get the seamless data flow between your MRP and your accounting system, which will eliminate any of those manual journal entries. Odoo supports standard, average, and FIFO. Does not support LIFO. You can do FIFO based on an overall inventory, or you can do it based on lots or serial. It supports that. So when you're doing your perpetual inventory, you're going to get the real-time balance sheets and total cost capture, which means we're getting the cost of the materials, the labor, and the overhead associated with those work centers. And then you can track your inventory from consumption to sales. Odoo also has a lot of reports that you can use so that you can see the difference between what was allocated to a manufacturing order versus the actual. I don't know how to use this. Okay. So just an agenda, kind of what we're going to go through, the core framework, how to set it up, and then options for valuing your WIP. And then I'm going to also talk about some of the customizations for variances that we've done, and then what's new in version 19. So core framework, kind of the configuration. If you want to make sure that you're getting all of your journal entries and everything flowing through to the accounting properly, what you're going to want to do, first thing, you're going to turn on your automated inventory in your accounting settings. Once you have that turned on, you will get the option to set perpetual inventory on your product categories. From there, you can set the costing method. You can set all of your income, expense, valuation, all of that there on the categories. And then you're going to want to set the expense account to a contra COGS account on the work center. And then obviously ensure all of your inventory has value associated with it. That's one of the issues that I see is people will ask, well, why am I not getting journal entries? If you don't have a cost associated with it, you're not going to get them. All right. So on this slide, it's just kind of how the inventory moves through at each step. So when we purchase inventory, that receipt is going to trigger a debit to our inventory and a credit to the stock interim received account. That's accruing that purchase or accruing that vendor bill. Once you create the vendor bill, it clears out that accrued purchases account. So on consumption, we're going to debit our WIP account and credit the raw material inventory, and then we're going to get the debit to finished good and the credit to WIP. And then depending on which costing method you're using, it will go through on a weighted average, FIFO, or standard. And then when you close the manufacturing order, we have to record the applied labor and overhead, which is going to be a debit to our WIP account and a credit to that contra COGS account. And pretty much the reason that we have to do that is when we're putting our inventory through WIP, the WIP from the component is going to be just the component value, and then when the finished good comes out, it has the labor and overhead associated with it. So we have to remove that value. We don't want to double count it in our P&L. And then upon invoicing, we're going to get our debit to COGS and credit to stock interim. All right, so some options for work in process. So the base flow for WIP is it's all going to happen at the same time when we confirm our manufacturing order. So as soon as you confirm that, it's just going to go into WIP and then come right out of WIP. So this is okay when your operations don't take a long time and you're using flat bombs. Another option is if we're using a hierarchy for our bill of materials, where we're building sub-assemblies, we can value those sub-assemblies as WIP. So this is for a more structured bill of materials. And the last thing is we can do a two-step manufacturing. In this setup, you would change your pre-production location to a production type, and that gives us our journal entry into our work in process. So this is when our operations take a long time and cross periods, and we want to value that WIP. So as soon as we pick it, it becomes work in progress. All right, and in the base Odoo, you can see your variances and you can run reports on estimated versus actual, but Odoo doesn't record the variances for you. So what if I want to record variances? With QOC, we've created a customization for this. And essentially what we did is we added fields for your labor variance, overhead, your applied labor, your applied overhead, and a material variance. And then essentially what it does when you have those set is we're going to debit or credit WIP depending on if it's an overage or an under. And then we'll credit those variances or debit depending on the direction of that. And then this slide just kind of shows you the T-chart and gives you an example of overconsumption of material and under time. So what's new in version 19? The first thing is you have the flexibility of labor and overhead recording. So you can either do it based on a fixed rate or an actual cost on the work center. The second thing is they've simplified the journal entries for inventory and manufacturing. So what they did is they took away the individual transactions for each move, and they've consolidated it into a report that you would record the effects of that at the end of a period. So what if you want those individual journal entries? We've developed a solution to preserve those individual journal entries. And essentially what we did is we took fields that were still within the database but hidden, and we populated them with the correct accounts for a delivery, a receipt, and manufacturing. Once we did this, we were able to get journal entries for a receipt, a delivery, and manufacturing. The other thing that we had to do is on the invoices and bills, we were still recording the inventory move or the stock valuation move on the invoice and the bill directly. So we had to redirect it to use the associated locations so we could clear the interim accounts. And then in order to simplify it, we put this all into the settings. So once you turn it on, it will show all of the fields that need to be populated. You can populate those, and it will go to the location and set each one of those. Then we made it so that it would automatically turn on perpetual inventory, and we disabled the generate entries button on the inventory valuation report. This was to prevent anybody from hitting that button and recreating those journal entries that we're doing automatically. And I must have went through it really fast. Are there any questions? Yeah.
With this change that Odoo made for 19, is there an expectation that Odoo is going to make more change, continue to make more changes?
I don't know for sure. I know we've worked with them, especially on this. We've worked with them pretty closely and kind of discussed some of our concerns with it and potential solutions for it. So I don't know a timeline, but I'd be happy to get some information and see if I can find anything out.
What's the, you probably don't have the insight potential to answer this, but what is the reasoning behind not having these like basic accounting things?
Yeah, so there were a couple of reasons. So reason number one, when you're generating a journal entry for every single inventory move, kind of the thing that happens is the system gets overwhelmed with journal entries. I personally like the journal entries, but it can get overwhelming, and then it takes up storage space, obviously. And you know, some of the other systems that people are coming from, like QuickBooks or something similar to that, Xero, they don't do inventory this way, and so a lot of people aren't used to it. And I mean, with working with a lot of customers, I've had plenty of questions on these interim accounts and how do they work, why do we need them? So I know it confuses people quite a bit. So I think, you know, trying to make it a little bit more simplified was the goal, and then saving storage space. Yes, Aaron.
Are we going to be potential of slowing the system down after a while with like our $750,000?
I mean, I think it would be a long time before that happens, but yeah, you're going to take storage space.
Is Odoo going to go back to the way they originally had it with the?
I know they've put in a few things that, so the question is Odoo going to go back to the way that they did it? No, I don't think so. However, they did add a few things where so there's the stock valuation report, and essentially what it does is it takes your beginning inventory value and it shows you, okay, here's all of the inventory, the value. It doesn't show you individuals. It says, here's the value of everything you've sent out, here's the value of everything you've recorded, so this should be the value at the end. And then it does your journal entry for you. Then they've also put into place another review step where you'll go in and you'll accrue those purchases or accrue the deliveries that you've sent out. So they're trying to accommodate it, but you don't get the individual transactions still.
What happens when you cross over periods and you got to go back and fix it?
It's a very good question. It'll all show up in the inventory valuation report. Mm-hmm. So he asked, so what happens at the end of the period if you have to go back and fix an MO or something like that? So it would just, the effects of it would show up in the inventory valuation report, and then the effects would be recorded into this new period, which is correct accrual accounting, right? You don't fix anything backwards. Usually you've already closed the month, and so we just need to do the transaction in this month. So, but I mean, we did create a cool customization that gives you the option to do it. It works really nice. So, but as far as upgrading or anything like that, I'm not sure. I haven't done a 19 upgrade yet. So, but I know they've tried to put a few things into place because we did bring it up. When it first came out, the assets and the liabilities weren't accurate. So we brought it up, and they did put in some things that we could fix it. So I did a review. I was tasked with reviewing it and going through and making some transactions and seeing the effects of it. And essentially what happens is if I'm not accruing my purchases, that means my liabilities are off. And if I am not recording my stock transaction or my stock move until invoicing or until I get the vendor bill, I mean, if I don't get the vendor bill until next month, it's not accurate. My stock level is not accurate, and my purchases, my accrued AP is not accurate. So that's kind of what we found. So, any other questions?
Did they already ask the one about the upgrade in 19, and then you want this customization to keep it?
Yeah, we talked about that. So yeah, we've done the work to get the customization in there. I don't like this so close to my face. So yeah, we've figured it out, and we can get individual transactions, and it works nicely. Yeah, Riley.
Is there a level of effort associated with accommodating the QOC customization, or do we have this as a box app available to the individual?
Yes, it is a boxed app. Yep. So we've developed it. We put all the time into testing it and getting it ready, and it's boxed up for anybody to use. Jim, come on, you love accounting. By the way, Jim, I'll pay you later for that comment. Okay.
Fixed and variable overhead rates and the new version of Odoo, tell us about that.
So you can do it so right now, essentially the way that it works is you set your rate on the work center, and then it's going to take actual time. So when you're using standard costing, you might want it to be a fixed rate, but right now it only does actuals. So now you have the option to do either a fixed overhead and labor application to that manufacturing order, or you can do the variable, which is what they have now. Okay. Yay.